Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment when the mirror no longer reflects who you're becoming. It only echoes who you used to be. And yet most people keep staring into that same mirror, hoping the reflection changes without ever changing themselves. You were never meant to stay the same. You were not born to repeat the same habits, chase the same temporary pleasures, and recite the same excuses. You were designed for evolution. But evolution is not passive. It does not come when you're ready. It arrives uninvited, wrapped in discomfort, dressed as fear, disguised as loss. This is the part no one tells you. You must force yourself to grow. You must rip yourself out of your routines. You must outgrow conversations that keep you small, environments that keep you numb, and identities that keep you safe. Because safety is not the goal. Transcendence is. The old version of you is seductive. It's familiar. It whispers, stay here. It's easier. But ease is the graveyard of greatness. And if you don't deliberately kill the weak parts of you, life will do it for you. And that is far more painful. Every time you feel resistance, it's a signal. That's where the growth is. When your mind screams to stay in bed, that's when you rise. When your emotions beg for validation, that's when you find it within. When your past tries to drag you back, that's when you break the chain. Force yourself, not out of hate, but out of reverence. Reverence for who you're becoming. Because one day you'll look back and thank the version of you that refused to stay the same. Not everyone will understand your evolution. Not everyone is meant to. You will lose people, you will lose patterns, you will even lose parts of yourself. But what you will gain is you. Now ask yourself, will you keep wearing the skin you've outgrown just because it once felt like home? Or will you force yourself into the fire and watch what rises from the ashes? You know the answer. So, move, break. No. Comfort is the enemy of evolution. It feels warm, familiar, and deceptively safe. But what most fail to realize is that comfort is not peace. It is stagnation dressed in soothing tones. It lulls you into thinking that because nothing is breaking, everything is fine. But stillness is not always calm. Sometimes it's a silent scream from the soul that knows it was built for more. You've been taught to chase comfort, to find a stable job, a safe relationship, a predictable routine. You've been told that if you can just maintain what you have, you've made it. But that's a lie disguised as wisdom. What comfort really does is create a cage, a beautiful, padded prison that keeps you from touching your full potential. And the longer you stay there, the more you convince yourself that it's where you belong. But comfort kills more dreams than failure ever could. The truth is, real growth begins where comfort ends. It begins in the raw places, the uncertain paths, the unfamiliar conversations with yourself that say, this version of me has served its purpose, but it cannot carry me forward. And yet, despite knowing this, you hesitate. Because the old self is cozy, predictable. It doesn't demand courage. It doesn't demand confrontation with your flaws. It lets you coast. But you were not meant to coast. You were meant to climb. And climbing requires discomfort. It means stepping away from what you know, even when what you know is still functioning. It means having the courage to let go of stability in order to reach for significance. It means waking up every day and deciding that who you were yesterday is not enough for who you're destined to become. The decision will never feel natural at first. It's not supposed to. You are, after all, rewiring patterns that may have taken years to build. You are shedding layers that became part of your identity. That's why forcing yourself is necessary, not in a way that breaks your spirit, but in a way that reignites your fire. You must become your own disruption. Because waiting for life to shake you awake is dangerous. Life only does that when it has no other option left. Forcing yourself to evolve is an act of war against the inner voice that says, maybe later. It's staring at your excuses and saying, not anymore. It's pushing beyond what feels good so you can arrive at what is truly great. It's understanding that temporary pain is a small price to pay for permanent transformation. And yes, it will hurt. Discomfort will show up in every corner. It will creep into your morning routine. It will sit beside you when you try to stay focused. It will whisper doubts when you attempt something new. But what you must remember is this. That discomfort is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're finally moving. That friction you feel is the old you resisting extinction. That's its job. But your job is to outlast it. Every time you choose to show up, despite the resistance, you are rewriting your future. You are reminding your subconscious that you are no longer loyal to the old blueprint, that you're no longer satisfied with surface-level living, that you're no longer waiting for external permission to become who you already know you are. And the beauty of this path is that once you begin, once you taste even a glimpse of your own potential, the old version of you becomes unbearable. Not because you hate it, but because you've outgrown it. Like a snake shedding skin, or a seed breaking open. Growth looks like damage before it looks like transformation. But that's the process. You break down to rebuild stronger. You fall apart to rise whole. So don't fear forcing yourself forward. Fear what happens if you don't. Because if you don't, you'll wake up one day surrounded by a life that looks nothing like your purpose. You'll be haunted not by the things you failed at, but by the chances you never took, the doors you never opened, the version of yourself you never met. And that version, that powerful, disciplined, courageous, elevated version of you, is waiting. But it won't walk into your life by accident. You'll have to fight for it, bleed for it, sacrifice for it. And most of all, force yourself to let go of who you are so you can become who you were always meant to be. The old self is familiar, not fulfilling. And that is what traps most people for a lifetime. They confuse comfort with purpose and familiarity with happiness. But something inside them always feels off, like a quiet ache. And the invisible tension between who they are and who they know they could be, yet they stay. They keep recycling the same thoughts, the same habits, the same responses. Not because they are happy, but because they are afraid to leave what they've known. The truth is, what once served you may now be your greatest limitation. The mindset that helped you survive your past might be the very thing that's stopping you from thriving in your future. The beliefs that kept you safe may now be keeping you small. And the version of you that once made sense might now be standing in the way of everything that is trying to unfold through you. But here's the paradox. We are drawn to the familiar, even when it hurts, even when it limits us, even when it suffocates our growth. Because the human mind doesn't necessarily seek what's good. It seeks what's known. And that's why the old version of you is so dangerous. Not because it's evil, not because it's wrong, but because it's easy, because it fits like an old jacket, even when it's 2 sizes too small. And still you wear it. Why? Because it takes no effort. You don't have to think. You don't have to stretch. You don't have to face uncertainty. You just wake up, do what you've always done, and convince yourself that someday you'll change. But there is no someday. There's only now. And now is slipping away, second by second, while you hold onto a self that has expired. You see, the old version of you may have been born out of necessity. Maybe it was shaped by pain, by trauma, by survival. Maybe it was built to please others, to win approval, to avoid rejection. But you are not here to keep performing that outdated script. You are here to rewrite it, to burn it, to transcend it. You are here to become the person you were too afraid to be. And you'll never step into that version of yourself until you're willing to feel the discomfort of leaving the familiar behind. That means letting go of identities that no longer fit. It means saying goodbye to behaviors that once brought relief, but now only bring regret. It means releasing attachments to people, places, and patterns that are no longer aligned with where you're going. It's terrifying, it feels like loss, but it's actually rebirth. Because you cannot feel fulfilled living as someone you've already outgrown. You will always feel disconnected. You will always feel restless, no matter how much you distract yourself, no matter how much you pretend to be content. There will always be a voice inside you that whispers, "This isn't it. You're made for more." And that voice will never go away. Not until you listen. Not until you stop confusing loyalty to your past with commitment to your truth. Not until you realize that choosing yourself will sometimes mean betraying who you used to be. And that's okay. That's part of the shedding. That's part of the unfolding. The version of you that's waiting to emerge doesn't want permission, it wants courage. It doesn't need perfection, it needs honesty. Honesty to admit that you've been playing it safe. Honesty to admit that you're not fulfilled. Honesty to admit that even though the old you is easier, it's not you anymore. Ask yourself, what are you still holding on to just because it's familiar? What part of you needs to be thanked for getting you this far and then released so you can go farther? Because the journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming you, the truest you, the one that's been buried beneath layers of fear, habit, and history. And when you finally let go of the old version of yourself, you'll feel it. Not as a loss, but as liberation. You'll breathe deeper. You'll move lighter. You'll wake up no longer pretending. Because when you stop living for the familiar and start living for what fulfills you, That's when the real transformation begins. Growth never feels safe. That is the great irony of becoming. Everyone wants to evolve, to rise higher, to become stronger. But they want it to feel easy, smooth, and secure. Yet the very nature of transformation is that. It demands you step into the unknown. And the unknown is never comfortable. It's never cozy. It never promises certainty. Growth doesn't arrive with a map. It arrives with silence, with friction, with questions that have no immediate answers. Expansion. We are conditioned to seek safety. It's a primal instinct. The mind wants to protect us, to avoid risk, to stick to what's proven. But the soul wants expansion. It doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't care if you're uncertain. It only knows that it's time to move. And in that tension between the mind, craving safety, and the soul, craving freedom, most people stay stuck, frozen, torn between who they were and who they're supposed to be. The truth is simple. You will never feel fully ready to grow. You will never feel entirely prepared to take the leap, because growth requires a kind of internal death, a letting go of what you've known, who you've been, and everything that has made you feel stable. That's why growth feels like chaos before it feels like clarity. It breaks what you thought was solid. It disrupts what you thought was certain. It's supposed to. If you feel fear when trying something new, you're not doing it wrong, you're doing it right. That fear is not a stop sign. It's not a warning that you're on the wrong path. It's a signal that you are stretching beyond the limits of your old self. It's the cracking of the shell before the bird is born. It's the shaking of the ground before the roots break through. But most people misunderstand this feeling. They believe fear is a reason to retreat. So they turn around the moment they feel resistance. They say, I'll wait until it feels easier, until I feel ready. But readiness never comes in the way they think. You don't feel brave and then act. You act, and the courage comes after. The strength comes after. The safety comes not from avoiding fear, but from surviving it, from walking through it, from proving to yourself that the thing you were afraid of wasn't bigger than you. It was just unfamiliar. And that's what it means to force yourself to grow, to do it even though your hands are shaking, even though your voice trembles, even though part of you wants to run back to what's familiar. It means showing up anyway, speaking the truth anyway, choosing progress over comfort every single time, because there is no breakthrough without breakdown. There is no clarity without confusion. You cannot reach higher levels of yourself while holding on to the ground. You must release, you must rise, even when rising feels like falling. And in the process, you will feel lost. That's part of the path. You will question everything. You will wonder if you made the wrong choice. You will feel like a beginner again. That is exactly where you're supposed to be. Beginners are brave. Beginners are curious. Beginners are open. Safety keeps you in cycles. Growth puts you on a journey. So don't wait for the fear to disappear. Don't wait for the doubts to vanish. They are part of the experience. Let them come and keep moving anyway. Let them speak and keep choosing growth anyway. That's how you evolve. not by avoiding discomfort, but by allowing it to shape you, refine you, and awaken you. The strongest version of you is not waiting in the familiar. It's not hiding behind old routines. It's standing at the edge of what scares you. It's on the other side of that decision you've been avoiding. And it is only revealed when you walk through the fear that tells you to stop. Growth never feels safe because it's not meant to protect the old you, it's meant to build the new you. And the new you doesn't emerge from shelter. It emerges from fire. So lean into the fear, walk into the unknown. Do it trembling if you must, but do it. Because the life you want, the person you want to become, they're not waiting behind safety, waiting behind courage. Your current habits shape your future prison or your future freedom. It's easy to overlook the small things we do every day, the way we wake up, the thoughts we entertain, the words we speak, the choices we make in silence. But these seemingly minor actions are not insignificant. They are the architects of our destiny. They either build walls that confine us or doors that liberate us. Most people underestimate the power of repetition. They assume that one day of procrastination, one more excuse, one skipped step doesn't matter. But life doesn't judge you based on what you do once in a while. It responds to what you do consistently. Your habits are the blueprint your future is being built upon, even when you're not paying attention. If you feed your mind with negativity, laziness, and avoidance, you're not just wasting time. You're weaving the threads of a life that will eventually feel like a trap. Prisons don't always come with bars. Sometimes they look like comfort zones. They look like habits that feel soothing but keep you stagnant. A scroll before sleep, a complaint instead of a solution, a plan that never becomes action. These are quiet decisions, harmless at first glance, but over time they become routines. And routines become identity. And before you realize it, you're living in a pattern you didn't choose consciously. You simply slipped into it. But it works the other way, too. Just as habits can create confinement, they can also create liberation. Every time you choose discipline over delay, every time you show up instead of shutting down, you are rewriting your future. You are teaching your mind that it doesn't have to be a prisoner of the past. You are proving to yourself that you can be trusted with growth, with focus, with your own becoming. And that is everything. Because at its core, freedom is not a destination. It's not something you arrive at suddenly one day. It is the natural result of living with intention. It is the quiet reward of daily alignment. When your habits reflect your values, when your actions mirror your potential, you begin to feel free, even if nothing externally has changed yet. You wake up with purpose, you move with clarity, you trust yourself again. That's why your habits matter more than your goals. Goals are distant and often abstract. But habits are immediate. They are the proof of your commitment. And every habit you hold is either reinforcing the old version of you or helping you build the new one. There is no neutral ground. There is no pause button on life. Every day you are either drifting or designing. So look closely. Are your habits keeping you small? Are they numbing your ambition? Are they pulling you into patterns that your future self will regret? Or are they pushing you forward, inch by inch, breath by breath, toward the life you know you're meant to live? You don't need a massive overhaul. You don't need to burn everything down. and start from scratch. You need awareness. You need honesty. And then you need the courage to choose differently, to say no when it's easier to say yes, to begin again even when you slipped yesterday, to make one small choice that aligns with your higher self, and then repeat it tomorrow. That's how transformation happens. Not in bursts of motivation, not in loud declarations, but in the quiet, invisible war you fight each day between comfort and growth, between habit and intention, between who you've been and who you are becoming. So choose wisely, because your habits aren't just things you do. They are evidence of what you believe. They are the story you're writing about what you think is possible for you. And one day, that story will either be a cage or a compass. You are building something right now, whether you're aware of it or not. The question is, are you building walls around your potential, or are you building a path that leads you to freedom? The answer lies in what you repeat. And you're repeating something. Make sure it's worth becoming. Every transformation begins with destruction. This is the truth most people are never told. Growth is romanticized, painted as a graceful rise, a beautiful unfolding, a peaceful evolution. But in reality, growth is violent. It shatters illusions. It breaks patterns. It burns down everything that isn't aligned with who you are meant to become. And that destruction is not a punishment. It is a necessary clearing. You cannot plant new roots in soil that's still crowded with weeds. To become someone new, you must first unbecome who you were. This process is messy, it's emotional, it's confusing, because the parts of you that are dying off aren't just bad habits or toxic mindsets. They are pieces of your identity, ways you've seen yourself, stories you've told, defenses you've clung to. When you let go of them, it feels like loss. You grieve the version of you that used to make sense. Even if that version was wounded or weak, it still felt familiar. And so the letting go feels like a kind of death. And in a way, it is. Transformation is death and rebirth. It's not just about improving what exists. It's about dismantling it, tearing it down brick by brick until there's room for something new to emerge. This is why it's so painful. You're not just changing your habits, you're changing your reality. You're changing the way you see the world, the way you see yourself, and the way you respond to life. That takes more than motivation. It takes complete surrender. Most people run from this part. They sense the destruction coming and they retreat. They label the discomfort as a warning and flee back to what's safe, what's known, what's easy. But in doing so, they postpone their evolution, because the longer you avoid destruction, the longer you delay transformation. You cannot heal in the same mindset that broke you. You cannot expand in the same environment that shrinks you. Something has to be broken so something greater can be built. And what's being broken is the illusion that you must stay the same. The illusion that your past defines you, that your pain disqualifies you, that your limits are permanent. These ideas must be torn apart, dismantled, burned, because as long as they stand, they block your growth. They convince you that who you are is all you'll ever be. But deep down, you know that's not true. There's a fire inside you, a voice, a knowing. Even when you doubt yourself, even when you're tired or afraid, that quiet truth keeps flickering. You were made for more. And that truth is why the destruction begins. Not to hurt you, but to make room for that more. It's not chaos for the sake of chaos. It's a cleansing, a stripping away of everything false, everything small, everything that doesn't fit your future. You cannot take the old you into the life you haven't lived yet. If you feel like things are falling apart, understand this. They are falling into place. The discomfort, the confusion, the breaking, it's all part of the process. Trust it. Trust the burning. Trust the silence that comes after. Because from that silence, something new will speak. Something clearer, stronger, wiser. And when you emerge from it, when the dust settles and the ashes cool, you realize you didn't lose anything important. You only lost illusions. You only lost limits. What remains is real. What remains is you, without the mask, without the fear, without the old story dragging behind you like a chain. So let the destruction happen. Don't fight it. Don't try to save what's crumbling. Let it fall. Let it die. This is the sacred fire of transformation. This is the necessary undoing that makes space for your becoming. And on the other side of that destruction, there is clarity. There is strength. There is you reborn. You cannot carry your past into your purpose. This is the silent weight most people drag through life. Old wounds, outdated beliefs, toxic patterns, and false identities that no longer serve the direction they claim to be heading. They try to build a new future while holding on to everything from the old one, hoping they can move forward without letting go. But it doesn't work that way. The truth is simple, though painful. What brought you here won't take you there. Purpose requires space. And if your hands are full of the past, you won't have the strength or the room to receive what's next. You can't grow if you keep recycling the same memories, entertaining the same self-doubts, or defending the same limitations. At some point, the weight becomes too heavy, not because you are weak, but because it was never meant to be carried this far. Some things were meant to teach you, not travel with you. But letting go is not easy. The past is seductive. Even if it hurt, it's familiar. It's a story you've rehearsed so many times that you've convinced yourself it's part of who you are. That heartbreak, that failure, that identity you built to protect yourself, they become like layers of skin. And when asked to peel them off, you hesitate. Because even pain can become a comfort zone. You tell yourself, this is just who I am. But deep down, you know it's not. It's just who you've been. And there's a difference. Who you are is still unfolding, still becoming. But that version cannot fully emerge until you unclench your grip on what no longer aligns. And this is where people get stuck. They want the new life, but they refuse to release the old mindset. They want the upgrade, but they won't delete the old programming. It's like trying to run forward with your feet tied to anchors and wondering why You're exhausted. Your purpose is not found in preserving what's behind you. It is revealed in stepping into what's ahead, even when it feels uncertain. That means saying goodbye to some things that once felt like home, relationships that no longer support your growth, habits that used to soothe you but now sabotage you, roles you played to be accepted that now silence your authenticity. All of it must go, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. It's not about rejecting your past. It's about releasing it, honoring what it taught you, thanking it for its lessons, and then laying it down. You don't have to hate who you used to be. That version of you fought hard. That version of you survived. But now, it's time to live. And you can't truly live while dragging the emotional corpses of old seasons into every new opportunity. Purpose is demanding. It requires focus. It requires lightness. It requires a heart that's not crowded with resentment, regret, or resistance. Because your purpose won't compete for space. It won't shout over your distractions. It waits in silence, quietly watching to see when you'll finally make enough room for it to breathe. Look around. What are you still carrying that doesn't fit the future you envision? What thought loops are still playing in the background, keeping you tethered to who you used to be? When you start to let go, the fear will rise. You'll question who you are without those familiar struggles. You'll feel vulnerable, empty even. That's normal. That's the detox. That's the shedding of an identity that was too small for your spirit. And in that empty space, if you stay long enough without rushing to fill it with old patterns, something miraculous happens. Purpose begins to speak, not loudly, but clearly. You begin to realize that you were never meant to carry everything. You were meant to evolve. And evolution requires subtraction, not just addition. You don't step into your purpose by becoming someone else. You do it by releasing everything you're not. If you feel called to more, it's not a mistake. It's a signal, a sign that your next level is ready, if you are. But you can't rise while you're still chained. You can't fly while you're still packed for yesterday. Let it go. Let them go. Let you go. The version of you that was built for survival, for approval, for fear. You must be a person of unity and in freedom and fundamental celestiality and unprecedented and unafraid. Clinging to the past is resisting your own rebirth. It's one of the most subtle forms of self-sabotage, a quiet refusal to grow, masked as nostalgia, loyalty, or fear of change. We hold tightly to what we've known, even when it's hurting us, even when it's stopping us from becoming who we're meant to be. Not because the past is beautiful, but because it's familiar. And familiarity feels safe, even when it's suffocating. We don't realize that every time we choose the comfort of what was over the possibility of what could be, we delay our evolution. We trap ourselves in cycles that no longer match our truth. Growth is not just about addition, it's about release. Rebirth is not only about rising anew, it's about being willing to die to the old. And yet most people resist this part. They fight the transformation. They mourn the identity they're being asked to outgrow. They confuse shedding with losing. But you cannot step into a new life while dragging the weight of your old one behind you. It's not possible. The self that's meant to rise cannot do so while tethered to past definitions, outdated roles, or emotional debris from a version of you that no longer exists. To be reborn, something must be surrendered, something must be let go, not because it wasn't valuable once, but because it no longer fits where you're headed. It's not the past itself that's the problem. It's our attachment to it. It's the belief that letting go is betrayal. That if we change, we're being disloyal to who we once were, or to the people who knew us in that older form. But growth is not betrayal. It's honor. It's honoring your soul's pull towards something greater. It's recognizing that staying the same for the sake of others is not love. It's a quiet form of self-abandonment. The truth is, we all have moments that shape us, pain that defines us, seasons that leave a mark. But those moments are not meant to become our permanent identity. They are chapters, not the whole book. And when we reread those chapters endlessly, when we base our present choices on past fears, we close ourselves off to life, to possibility, to purpose. Rebirth requires risk. It demands that you walk away from everything that feels like home when you know it's no longer healing you. It asks you to grieve what you've outgrown and to accept that growth often feels like loss, because in a way it is. It's the loss of illusions, of masks, of expectations. It's the death of who you thought you needed to be in order to feel safe, seen, or successful. But on the other side of that loss is clarity. There is power in the surrender. There is freedom in saying, that version of me was necessary, but it's no longer me. You can thank the past without the one who is ready to step out of the costume, out of the cage, out of the cycle. But that won't happen until you stop resisting the fall, until you stop clinging to the familiar, until you choose to let the old die so that something new, something real, can finally take its place. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable. Rebirth always does. Just as a seed breaks open to become a tree, just as a caterpillar dissolves into nothing before becoming a butterfly, your transformation will not be gentle. It will not be clean. It will demand that you release control, trust the process, and walk forward, even when you can't yet see who you are, but you will know. Deep down, you will feel it. That inner shift, that shedding of skin, that quiet liberation that comes when you finally say, I don't have to be who I was anymore. And in that moment, you are free. In that moment, you are reborn. Discipline is a declaration. It is not just a routine or a rule. It is a statement to yourself and to the world about who you are becoming. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, presence over impulse, intention over convenience, you are declaring, I am no longer available for mediocrity. It is the daily decision to become the architect of your future rather than a passive observer of your habits. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's a punishment, a restriction, a cage. But real discipline is not control. It is freedom. It is the conscious act of aligning your actions with your values. It is the strength to say no to what you want now in service of what you want most. And that takes courage. Because the path of least resistance is always available. You will always have the option to scroll, to sleep in, to numb, to procrastinate. But every time you do, you reinforce the old version of yourself, the one who avoids, delays, and drifts. Discipline is the opposite of drifting. It is grounded, deliberate, rooted in purpose. And it is not built in loud, dramatic moments. It is forged in the quiet, repetitive choices you make when no one is watching. The early morning wake-ups, the focused hours, the skipped temptations, the moments you wanted to quit but didn't. Each of these is a brick in the foundation of the life you're building. And more than that, each act of discipline is an act of self-respect. It is proof that you believe in your potential enough to protect it from your own comfort-seeking instinct. It is the way you prove to yourself that your future matters more than your mood. Because moods change, motivation fades. But discipline, that is your anchor. That is your strategy. That is your promise. There will be days you don't feel like showing up. There will be moments when the old you will whisper, just once won't hurt. But that's the test. That's the edge where change is made. That moment right there when it would be so easy to slip back, that is where the new you is born. That is the sacred space where transformation takes root. Not in what you do when it's easy, but in what you choose when it's hard. Discipline is also how you begin to trust yourself again. So many people live in cycles of broken promises to themselves. They say they'll change, but don't. They set goals, then ignore them. Over time, they begin to doubt their own word, even in silence. But every time you follow through, even in small things, you rebuild that inner trust. You become someone you can count on. And that changes everything. Because self-trust is the foundation of confidence. It is the quiet power that says, I will do what I said I would do, no matter what. And in a world obsessed with shortcuts, discipline is rare, it's radical, everyone wants the result, few are willing to commit to the process. But if you can, if you're willing to show up when it's inconvenient, to keep going when it's uncomfortable, to persist when it feels pointless, that's when the breakthrough happens. That's when the compound effect begins to work in your favor. Progress may feel slow, but it is never wasted. Each rep matters, each choice counts. Each day builds. When you force yourself to be disciplined, you are not being harsh. You are being loving. You are caring for your future self in a way that comfort never could. You are saying, I matter enough to try. I matter enough to show up. That is powerful, that is sacred, that is transformation. Discipline is not something you wait to feel ready for. It is something you become. It is who you are when your actions speak louder than your emotions. When your consistency becomes louder than your doubt. When your purpose overpowers your excuses. And when that happens, when discipline becomes your declaration, you don't just change your habits, you change your identity. You stop being a prisoner of your past patterns and step into the role of creator, leader, warrior, not because it was easy, but because you chose it every single day. The version of you you're avoiding, is your destiny. It's the one that scares you, the one that requires more, the one that demands sacrifice, discipline, truth, and courage. You glimpse it sometimes, in moments of stillness, in passing thoughts and dreams you don't say out loud, but then you retreat, because becoming that version of yourself feels overwhelming. It asks too much. It requires you to stop hiding, to stop playing small, to stop making excuses, and so you avoid it. You distract yourself. You water yourself down to fit into conversations you've outgrown. You stay in cycles you secretly hate because they are easier to explain than your vision. You play roles that feel safe instead of rising into the identity that feels right. Not because you don't want more, but because more feels risky. Because stepping into that greater version of yourself means letting go of everything that has kept you hidden, protected, and predictable. But here's the truth. The life you want already exists. The peace, the success, the clarity, it's all already within you. But it is locked inside the version of you that you've been too afraid to become. You need to understand this. It's exactly what happens to you, that you don't need to chase your potential. You need to stop resisting the call to rise. That highest version of you isn't built from convenience. It's not sculpted by ease or shaped by comfort. It's born from tension. It's created in the fire of hard choices. It takes form when you stop avoiding the work and start embracing the process. That process may not always feel good. It might be lonely. It might stretch you until you think you'll break. But you won't, because every part of you that isn't aligned with your purpose must fall away. And what's left is real. What's left is you. You've been waiting for clarity, for signs, for perfect timing. But the version of you you are meant to become doesn't wait. It leads. It makes the first move. It trusts the vision even when the path is unclear. It doesn't need validation because it's fueled by something deeper. Purpose. Avoiding that version of you doesn't make it go away. It just creates more distance between who you are and who you know you could be. And that distance, it's what creates frustration, restlessness, anxiety, that sense that something is missing. And that's the cost of avoidance. Not just missed opportunities, but a soul that knows it's capable of more and suffers in silence because of your delay. What would happen if you stopped running from that version of yourself? What if you met them fully? What if you stepped into their discipline, their mindset, their focus, their boldness? What if you moved like the person you've been dreaming of becoming? You'd lose some things. You'd lose the need to be liked by everyone. You'd lose the habit of making excuses. You'd lose the comfort of staying the same. But what you'd gain would be far greater clarity, strength, peace, purpose. You'd gain the ability to look in the mirror and finally say, this is who I really am. And that feeling, it's not something you can buy, imitate, or borrow. It's something you earn. Through action, through consistency, through facing what you've avoided. Your destiny is not a place. It's not a moment in time. It is a version of you that exists beyond your fears, beyond your laziness, beyond your patterns. And the door to that version is already open, but you have to walk through it. You have to be willing to leave behind the smaller self who keeps saying, maybe later, as later becomes never. And the more you delay, the more distant that powerful version of you becomes. Not because it's gone, but because you're walking in the wrong direction. Stop waiting, stop shrinking, stop pretending you don't know who you could be. You do. You've always known. Now do the work, take the risk, step into the fire, and become, because the version of you you're avoiding, that is your destiny. And so here you are, standing at the threshold between who you were and who you are meant to be. You've carried the weight of old versions, worn identities that no longer fit, lived in cycles that felt safe but kept you small. But deep within you, a voice has never stopped whispering, there is more to feel, more to give, more to become. This journey isn't about changing for the world. It's about returning to yourself, your highest, most fearless self, the version of you that no longer settles for mediocrity, that no longer hides behind comfort, that no longer delays greatness because of fear, the one who understands that true transformation is uncomfortable but necessary, that growth is not always graceful, but it is always worth it. So let the old self fall. Let the smallness, the fear, the hesitation dissolve. Outgrow your past without apology. Build discipline like armor. Trust the discomfort. Walk into the unknown. Because the future isn't waiting. It's calling, and it's calling you.